about time.
Hey guys, I know it's been a minute since I've been here in front of the camera, but I figured for my triumphant return, I would go ahead and do a top five. I haven't done a top five in quite some time, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to kind of get back into the game, right? But since Penguin has come out and it's got a lot of great reviews as far as a live action comic book series, I figured I'd go on and do a top five of DC's live action TV series. So there's some caveats to this. First and foremost, I'm going all the eras and decades and stuff like that. I kind of look back into a bunch of things that I grew up watching and some stuff that's currently on the air that maybe I'm not the most familiar with, not the biggest fan of, but still deserves to be in the list based on its popularity. So some of this is things I like, and a couple of them are going to be like, yeah, I know it's popular, so I might as well put it on the list for you guys. Yell at me in the comment section. Now, it is DC, so I'm probably going to get back to doing other top five lists where I'm going to do like Marvel, best and worst, and so on and so forth, and independent stuff like Dark Horse and Image and so on and so forth, because there's some stuff that's good out there for them as well. But we'll get to those in another video. So today it's just the top five DC live action TV shows. Oh, the caveat is that they have to go more than one season. And there's some things that were kind of good that got canceled early that I just felt like I couldn't put in the list for one season when there's stuff that have like 10 seasons, or stuff that it was only designed to be one season long. It was kind of like a short mini series type deal. So I felt like that wasn't fair. All right, so we're gonna start with my number five. Number five, I went with the 70s version of Wonder Woman. Yeah, I know there was like a couple other iterations of Wonder Woman, but they didn't make it out of the first season, and some of them didn't make it out of the pilot. But the Linda Carter version was probably one of the first things that I was drawn to that I had to watch every week. And if you've seen Linda Carter back then you know why. But it was very campy, it was very comic book-ish, and I felt like she embodied the Wonder Woman character. Some will say if you look at it now, she wasn't as athletic as she could have been going forward, or as our interpretations of Wonder Woman has gone forward in the comics. But if you look at like Gal Gadot, she's not that athletic either. And they were both models at one particular point in time. I think the only person that probably had more of an athletic physique was the girl who played Mockingbird from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when she had a pilot for Wonder Woman. That was probably it. But Linda Carter did such a great job in this, and then it went on for, sorry, I have to look at my notes, went on for like 3 seasons and like 60-something episodes. So this thing had a really, really good run, and she is such an iconic person to play this particular character that she still goes to Comic-Con. She still, I mean, that's who we think of as the iconic Wonder Woman. Eventually, Gal Gadot is right behind her, so she'll eventually replace Linda Carter, but it was Linda Carter for Wonder Woman. So that's going to bring me to my number 4. Number 4! All right. Number 4, I went with, what did I go with for number 4? Like I said, it's been a while since I've done this before. I went with The Flash. So the CW shows. So I probably really entered the CW Arrowverse with The Flash. It was the one that really got to me. And I know there was the original one that aired in the 90s, which was a really, really good show. I remember I used to watch that show all the time, but it didn't last that long. The CW's Flash went on for forever, and they iterated like everything. They iterated people from the original show, from other DC shows, all into it, and it basically covered every speedster character that you could possibly do. And then I can't remember his name right now, and I'll pop it up on screen, but the gentleman who played Barry Allen in here was probably our most definitive Flash that we've gotten so far. His charisma, his presence on screen. The only thing about it is that he was kind of wimpy. I really wish that he got in the weight room and put a little bit of muscle on. I know the Flash isn't like a big muscular person, but he does look athletic, and he looks like he came from Glee, which is the show that he originally came from. He looked like basically he just put a Flash costume on and then just ran out and be fast. Luckily, the way he played the character was enough to keep you sold on it, but physical wise he wasn't there, and they kept adjusting the costume as the seasons went on to get more comic accurate. And like I said, they introduced everybody into this, all the different speedsters, all the different villains. It was the Arrowverse that I guess they kind of had to, but it's my definitive version of a live action Flash, not the stuff that Zack Snyder did. All right, so that's gonna bring me to number 3. So number 3 is gonna be the Arrow, and I watched the Arrow for a little while, but I will recognize that it has a great impact on um, live action DC Comics shows. The Arrow, like I said, started the Arrowverse, which spun off into like 7, 8 shows. I mean, it was the Arrow, it was Flash, it was Supergirl, it was Legends of Tomorrow, it was Black Lightning, it was Stargirl. Yeah, so it was about 6, 7 shows. And this all started from the Arrow, where they did more of a gritty look at what it was like to be the Green Arrow. And sometimes the Green Arrow kind of gets a bad rap, where he's just kind of like Arrow Batman, which if you look at the plot and origin story, he kind of is. But this dark, grittier version of, I mean, it's kind of still Batman because it's a dark, gritty version. But anyway, this grittier version of the Arrow really resonated with the watchers and the viewers of the show. And like I said, it spun off. I mean, this thing went, Arrow went with 8 seasons, like 100 something episodes. I had to write it down. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. But it went like 8 seasons, and like I said, it spawned its whole universe. So I mean, I had to give recognition to a show that started a whole universe. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of it, I got like a season, maybe a season and a half into it, and I really kind of like, I'm not that big of a Green Arrow fan. Like I said, Flash got me back on board, but I have to give props to what started the Arrowverse, which was Arrow. All right, so that's gonna bring me to number 2. Number 2, we're gonna go back in time a little bit. This is not, I wasn't born at this time when this show came out, so don't think I'm that old. But little me was watching this show as a kid because it used to air all the time, and even adult me watched this show when I would get bored. And that is Batman from the 60s version of Batman. That, I mean, we're gonna talk about camp. This is literal camp. It goes back, and it's so much of a comic book show that they even show like comic book graphics when they're having fights. The Batman and Robin chemistry on screen is what you saw in the comic books even back then. And I mean, if you get a little more of a lighter version in your Batman comics now, not all the dark and gritty stuff, it is still kind of what you expect the banter to be back and forth with Batman. All the gadgets he had, and that's basically what this show is kind of made up on, is that it was Batman and he was a good detective and he always figured out stuff. But the show was really moved by like all his gadgets from the the Batmobile. Sorry, I was struggling for a little bit. The Batmobile, the Batplane, the Batboat, the Bat. I don't think he had a submarine, but he had something else. So, and then watching him slide down the poles when they would go to change to get to the Batcave, lifting up the head on the statue and sliding down the poles. And it introduced a bunch of different Bat villains. I mean, that's how I got right. That's basically how I got into Batman, was getting introduced to Batman and all his villains, his rogues gallery from the TV show, and that made me love Batman. Batman's one of my favorite characters all the way through, but of all time is what I'm trying to say. But this show is what made me a Batman fan. All right, so that's gonna bring me to my number 1. All right, so my number 1, once again, wasn't the biggest fan of this show, and but I will recognize that its importance to live action comic TV, especially for DC, and that's gonna be Smallville. And Smallville was based on making what we would first look at as doing a comic book show that is more real world. They didn't want to do Superman and show him go from being a young kid, basically Superboy, and then go all the way up to being Superman and showing the cape and the tights and all that stuff. That wasn't their biggest thing, but they tried to make everything real world. I mean, so basically is where Christopher Nolan got it from. And they introduced basically everybody that you can think of, from Lex Luthor to Doomsday, all the villains. They did a version of Flash. They did a version of everything I can think of. And this thing ran for like 10 seasons. So once again, I cannot take away the importance of this show. I was not the biggest fan of it, but because I want my comic TV to be a little bit more campy, but I have to say it is very important. And most people still want these characters to come back. Even Christopher Reeve ended up having a cameo in this show, and he is the most iconic Superman. He had, and unfortunately, it was later on in his life when he had suffered his accident, but still, it remains. He did actually show up on the show. So you have to acknowledge the importance of it. And I would think that there is not a lot of people who follow DC as a comic universe, TV show, movies, stuff like that, that wasn't a fan of this show at one point in time. All right. So that's gonna bring me to my honorable mentions. And in my honorable mentions, there's a lot of things like that. So I mean, we can go back to like the 1950s Adventures of Superman, with George 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 Reeves, I think that was his name, playing Superman. That stuff's super iconic, and when you can catch it on old TV shows and stuff like that, like Nick at Night and stuff like that, that show still is charming in a way. And even when he would jump through the windows, in and out the windows to kind of show his flying, and the bad CGI that they did, because at the time it was a long time ago and it really wasn't much CGI, but their special effects. That one is a good show. I would say Supergirl is part of the Arrowverse. That was another one that I followed in the Arrowverse. I was a big fan of Supergirl. I really love the way that they did Supergirl, because we really hadn't gotten Supergirl at the time that this show was airing since the 80s, going all the back with the actual Supergirl movie. And I was a big fan of Supergirl in the comics. So that show really went on well, and it went for like 4 seasons. Other ones that we have on here was the original Flash. We also had Lois and Clark. I know a lot of people, I was like a kid when Lois and Clark, but it was too dramatic for me, and I wanted more superheroes in my show. But once again, I understand its importance. Lucifer, which I did not really realize was a DC character. That one, I think is, I'm not still airing. Maybe, I know Supernatural is still going on. Maybe Lucifer is still going on, but that show's been running for a while and it has a big fan following. All right, so those are gonna be my honorable mentions. I want you guys to tell me what your top 5 live action DC TV shows are in the comments below. I thought I got all of them that I could think of that was over 1 season. There's a bunch that are under 1 season, like Peacemaker and Penguin and stuff like that. There's a bunch that are under 1 season in Titans. Ooh, I forgot Titans. All right, you can get me on that one. Put your top 5 in the list below, and so that way we can discuss and kind of see what for. But if this is the first time that you're on the channel, and just the first time you're seeing me, or because you haven't seen me in a while, if you're already signed up for the channel, I will be back. But make sure you subscribe, as well as click the notification button, so that way you're aware of all the other videos that we do on the channel. All right, so that being said, I'll probably see you guys next week in another top 5.